A Chinese official and several journalists have been blocked from attending an annual forum in Taipei as cross-strait tensions remain high. Taiwan and Poland forge a new partnership based on trade and space tech innovation. Syrian refugees return home as uncertainty hangs over the country's future governance. Plus, activists in Taipei break the silence on stigmas surrounding HIV and AIDS. Good evening. Welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Joyce Tseng. Taiwanese and Chinese Coast Guard ships faced off in waters near Taiwan's east coast. Taiwan's Coast Guard says 9 Chinese vessels were unnecessarily provoking Taiwan by coming close to its waters. It says it monitored the vessels and is ready to defend the country's maritime rights. China's Coast Guard ships were likely returning to China after being deployed in large-scale military exercises around Taiwan earlier this week. A forum between Taipei and Shanghai is set to begin next Tuesday, but with tensions high after China's large-scale military drills earlier this week, Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council is blocking 10 people from the Shanghai delegation from entering Taiwan. Chris Gorin has more.
10 Chinese people have been denied from entering Taiwan to attend the Taipei-Shanghai Twin Cities Forum taking place next week. They include 9 journalists and the head of Shanghai's Taiwan Affairs Office, Jean Mei. Now, Chinese officials have been denied entry into Taiwan before, but not usually those attending this Twin Cities Forum, so this would appear to be a first. Now, Taipei City Mayor Zhang Wan'an was asked about the news this morning. Here's what he had to say.
我们也很希望用同等待客之道，让他们全团进到台北，顺利进行市政的交流。今天这样的结果，我们很遗憾。我们要对台湾的民主韧性有信心，开大门走大路。
Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council, or MAC, which handles cross-strait relations, initially simply said that these people did not pass a review. They later issued a statement seeming to cite recent aggressive Chinese actions as a basis for their decision. They specifically mentioned the 22 new articles to China's anti-secession law, which set more severe punishments for what they call Taiwan independence diehards. They said that Taiwan cannot sit idly by in the face of such aggressive actions, and that its reviews of officials visiting Taiwan may be used to express its dissatisfaction with China's actions. Now, the MAC's decision has been criticized by others in the KMT party. And if you look at Chinese social media, many are also criticizing Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party for trying to undermine one of the few remaining cross-strait exchanges. Eason Chen and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Scholars have questioned China's ability to invade Taiwan at a Taiwan Studies seminar held by Oxford University.
And in my other work on the Chinese PLA in recent years, I have very serious doubts about that. I think when Xi Jinping talks, as he does, talk up the Chinese military and its capabilities, that's very much intended to bolster morale and self-esteem.
Scholars believe China is unprepared to invade Taiwan due to uneven military unit capabilities and uncertainty over public support for war. They also discussed how incoming U.S. President Donald Trump might shift strategies to counter China's military expansion. The seminar, now in its 3rd year, followed pivotal elections with potential implications for the Indo-Pacific region. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's former national security advisor says the incoming administration will be good for Taiwan.
I think we're going to have a really strong administration when it comes to Taiwan. Peace and strength is back, and that's great news for Taiwan.
Robert O'Brien made the comments at an event organized by the Global Taiwan Institute think tank in Washington, D.C. He contrasted Trump's approach to China with Biden's, saying Trump would be tougher on Beijing. O'Brien also stressed there would be strong support for Taiwan at the highest levels of the administration. He pointed to Trump's nomination of Taiwan advocates, Senator Marco Rubio as Secretary of State and Congressman Mike Waltz as National Security Advisor. Earlier this week, President Lai Ching-te met with the Senate delegation from Poland, who offered support for Taiwan participating in international organizations, while also promising deepening cooperation on technology and trade. The visit comes 1 week after Taiwan and Poland signed a memorandum of understanding for collaboration on space technology. For more on Taiwan's relationship with Poland, Alec McDonald spoke to Marcin Jaskula, Senior Advisor at the Taiwan-Poland Chamber of Commerce.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between Taiwan and Poland's space sector?
So the MOU between the Taiwanese Space Agency, TASA, and the Polish Space Agency, POLSA, lays the ground for fostering both countries' relationship in the space sector. It gives us and our companies a platform for engagement with very clearly predefined sectors and pillars of this cooperation, which is the space propulsion technologies for space launchers and satellites, the space situational awareness, and also the Earth observation technologies and downstream services. These are the three pillars that Taiwanese Space Agency has identified as core subjects for cooperation, and Polish Space Agency has answered to them, and this is what we're going to be pursuing and developing next year.
With propulsion systems come rockets and rocket launches. Taiwan currently does not have capabilities to launch rockets domestically. Is this something that TASA is hoping to provide in the next coming years?
Poland and Taiwan are in the similar space at the moment when it comes to rocket technologies. They both do suborbital rockets. However, in Poland at the moment we have reached a milestone recently with sending one of our suborbital rockets to 100 kilometers using nitrogen peroxide as a propellant. So this is something that TASA is looking at currently, and we feel like next year might be the year of first tests being conducted here in Taiwan.
Zooming out, how would you describe the state of Polish and Taiwanese relations right now?
All-time high by far. We see a very, very good engagement between our nations. Ling Jiarong's, the foreign minister's recent visit to Poland is definitely a highlight of this growing and tightening relationship. Taiwan has been a great contributor of humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Obviously, they have to deliver this humanitarian aid first to Poland, so then Polish authorities can send them to Ukraine, because there's simply no other way of doing this at the moment. Taiwan was also a very, very good donor of cash donations to Ukrainian cities and hospitals.
That was Marcin Jaskula, Senior Advisor at the Taiwan-Poland Chamber of Commerce. You can watch the full interview on our show Zoom In, Zoom Out, available on TaiwanPlus.com. A local media report says the first batch of Abrams tanks ordered from the U.S. has arrived in Taiwan. The report said 38 tanks are set to be unloaded at the port of Kaohsiung in the south of the country. Taiwan ordered 108 of the Abrams M1A2 model in 2019 in a deal worth more than $1.2 billion. The Defense Ministry previously said 42 more tanks will arrive next year and the remaining 28 in 2026. Military sources say the tanks will all be deployed in northern Taiwan. Paratroopers from Taiwan's Special Operations Command have carried out airborne exercises in the south of the country. In Pingtung County, members of the public stopped their cars to watch the paratroopers descending. The soldiers practiced low and medium altitude jumps from a C-130 transport aircraft using new parachute systems to land in a small target area. Papua New Guinea will join Australia's National Rugby League in the 2028 competition after months of negotiations. As Rosie Greninger explains, this new deal is more than just sport, with two countries also signing a strategic partnership.
Rugby has long been popular in Papua New Guinea, but the nation's favourite sport didn't have a professional team until now. The Prime Minister of neighbouring Australia, Anthony Albanese, has announced that Papua New Guinea will be joining Australia's National Rugby League, known as the NRL.
We are united, of course, by a love of rugby league. And that's why I'm delighted to announce the Australian Government is supporting a PNG team to join the National Rugby League competition from 2028.
The 10-year deal will cost the Australian government over $380 million US.
The pathways is the majority of the expenditure. We want to set up the schools with rugby league. We want to take retired players into the schools. We want to set up weekend competitions. It's a massive project.
And it will provide a major boost for Papua New Guinea's economy, with home games set to be played in the capital, Port Moresby, where residents are already enthusiastic about the prospect.
The impact it will bring to the country is enormous in terms of tourist dollars, Kina-wise. And the excitement that is going to filter out around the country will be really exciting.
But this deal is not just about sport. Parallel to the NRL deal, Australia and Papua New Guinea signed another strategic security agreement, further to one signed last year, reaffirming its partnership with Canberra in all matters including policing, military, climate change, economic and cybersecurity. This boosting Australia's influence in the region.
We're working behind, and I want to appreciate Australia government for the bilateral security agreement we signed. It was signed 1 year earlier than these announcements. It is all working hand in hand, neatly, to make sure Port Moresby is safe.
Security analysts say the NRL deal is interlinked with the Security Pact. And there are media reports that if Papua New Guinea does anything that endangers the strategic agreement, including signing separate security deals with China, the plug will be pulled on the NRL deal.
This is something that Australia definitely has a comparative advantage over, particularly, I guess, with rugby league. It's not like China can offer an alternative rugby league competition for a PNG team to play in. So it's something that can cut across a lot of different boundaries or obstacles that you would have to face when dealing generally in diplomacy and engaging.
Although the Papua New Guinea team won't be on the field until 2028, these deals have already begun to secure Australia's strategic position in the region. But as residents celebrate the news of their inclusion in the professional league, the agreement hinges on Papua New Guinea playing to Australia's security rules. Scott Huang and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Hundreds of protesters clashed with police in Seoul after attempting to march on embattled South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's official residence.
지금 현재 여기는 인도인데 인도를 지금 경찰들이 가로막고 있는 상황인 거고요. 아까 진입하려고 했을 때 인도로 지나가려고 했을 때 경찰이 밀어서 넘어질 뻔했습니다. 이거는 폭력적인 사태인 거고요. 이렇게 막아서는 안 된다고 보고.
Yoon prompted outrage and a political crisis when he declared and quickly rescinded martial law last week. Hundreds of protesters gathered near his official residence to call for his removal. Yoon will face his second impeachment vote this Saturday. In the back streets of Seoul, longtime drinking establishments are struggling with a slowing economy and alcohol culture on the decline. Sonia Schlesinger explores what this means for South Korea's small business owners and university students.
Shot glasses clinking and raucous toasts. These are the sounds Chun Jung-suk remembers as she fries mung bean pancakes at her pub on Seoul's famous Nokdu Street. There was a time when Nokdu was so crowded you could barely walk.
거리가 그냥 머리밖에 없어, 까매. 길이 안 보여요. 머리만 까맣게 보일 정도로 사람이 많았어요.
Chun's bar, too, was once full every night. A hot spot for university students and co-workers out for a drink after work.
당연하죠. 옛날에는 무조건 선배가 내는 거예요. 그러니까 그 대물림 문화라는 게 그거였어요. 선배가 후배들을 사주는 게 대학교 신입생들은 절대 돈을 들고 다니면 안 돼요. 돈을 쓸 수가 없어.
But as South Korea's economy slows and people grow hesitant to spend money on nights out, all of that has changed.
원래 내놓기는 재작년에 내놨는데 보러 오는 사람이 없어요. 한 사람도 보러 온 사람이 없었어요. 근데 보다시피 거리에 사람이 없는데 여기 누가 장사를 하러 오겠냐고요.
It's not just the economy that's different. After-work drinking sessions, known as huishik, have fallen sharply in South Korea. A 2007 Seoul High Court ruling made it illegal for workers to force subordinates to drink alcohol. And since then, more and more workers, especially women, have stopped taking part in huishik. Younger generations are also embracing a culture without drinking.
맛집을 찾아다니거나 예쁜 카페 그리고 유명한 맛집들을 찾아가면서 그 술을 대체해서 맛있는 음식을 먹으면서 얘기를 나누는 그런 시간들이 많아졌던 것 같아요.
Some university students are actively encouraging their peers not to drink. At one Seoul university, even starting a club called the Alcohol Reduction Association.
술자리가 많이 줄어들었고 개인을 배려하는 술자리 문화로 발전해 나간 것은 사실이지만 여전히 술자리가 존재하고 그로 인해서 소외되는 개인이 존재하기 때문에 그 부분이 개선이 되어야 될 것 같고 이 부분이 저희가 절주 서포터즈 활동을 계속 이어나가는 이유입니다.
Meanwhile, for locals who do continue to patronize Nokdu Street, the experience is as much about reminiscing about the past as it is about living in the present. Howard Chang and Sonia Schlesinger for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, a look at colorful holiday decorations from the high mountains of Kashmir.
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性。
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
At a time when the world feels more divided, a platform for diverse voices to come together. I'm Divi Gopalan. Join the dots. Be part of the conversation. Connected where opinions matter.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Less than a week after the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, spirits in the capital, Damascus, are high as Syrians revel in newfound freedom. But other countries are keeping a close eye on how the rebel forces that toppled the authoritarian regime plan to rule the country next. Tiffany Wong reports.
Heading home, hundreds of Syrian refugees prepare to cross back into their homeland from Turkey and Lebanon after the end to a decade-long civil war.
خلص الحرب ونرجع إلى البلد إلى موطننا ونقعد نرتاح بوطننا وحاجة خلص حاجتنا كفاها المولى.
Rebel forces broke into prisons where the regime led by ousted President Bashar al-Assad had detained tens of thousands of people, subjecting them to torture and mass killings. Among those released, a missing American who'd last been seen in Budapest.
Where were you all this time?
I was imprisoned in Damascus for the last 7 months.
But with Assad's fall, there's now uncertainty over the transfer of power in Syria. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Turkey after visiting Jordan to discuss next steps with the country's neighbors. The U.S. is seeking an inclusive transition and stability in Syria.
I've had many calls over the last days with partners in the region, and everyone's agreed on the need to have a unified approach to advance many of our shared interests.
But uncertainty continues. Israeli forces have launched 400 attacks on Syria since Assad fled to Russia, striking what it claimed to be weapons manufacturing sites to prevent them from falling into the hands of the rebels that toppled the regime, many of whom are listed as terrorists by the U.S. and other countries. As they form their new government, it's unclear how much direction they'll take from regional stakeholders as they try to distance themselves from Assad and the horrors of the past decade. Kama Shri and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
A Hong Kong court has convicted an ex-Democratic lawmaker and 6 others for rioting during the city's 2019 pro-democracy protests. In July of that year, about 100 white-shirted men assaulted passengers and journalists in a Hong Kong metro station. Lam Chek-ting, a member of the city's disbanded Democratic Party, says he arrived at the scene to help and was attacked by the mob. He was arrested 13 months later for rioting and instigating violence. Lam is part of the so-called Hong Kong 47, a group of pro-democracy advocates charged with conspiracy to commit subversion under the city's Beijing-backed national security law. The Health Ministry has penalized 7 people for workplace bullying. An internal ministry investigation uncovered 8 suspected cases of bullying, including one in which a department head was penalized for making staff do squats and push-ups. This case was listed as minor compared to the others.
有这一个大声斥责嘛，哈，还有就是说不合理的退公文，并且造成他整个这个自尊心还有等等这边的一个受创。
It comes after the high-profile suicide of a civil servant. A fresh probe revealed they had been assigned impossible tasks by their manager. If you're experiencing thoughts about suicide and you're in Taiwan, please call 1995. December is World HIV/AIDS Awareness Month, and activists in Taiwan are calling attention to the disease and its impact on the lives of those living with HIV today. Wesley Lewis reports.
The Taiwan AIDS Foundation in Taipei has held their annual event to raise awareness about the taboos surrounding HIV and AIDS that still persist in society. This year marks 40 years since the country's first imported case of HIV. December is HIV/AIDS Awareness Month, which aims to draw attention to the virus and promote more research to eradicate the disease. Today's event featured presentations from activists and medical professionals, and a Q&A session with virtual idols to dispel some common misconceptions about HIV and AIDS. The foundation says their efforts have helped make progress, but that more work needs to be done.
我们虽然说6年前开始，6、7年前开始慢慢下来，但是还是每一年还是小1000个，还是有好几百个新的感染增加，这个表示我们革命尚未成功嘛所以同志能去努力了
Around 40,000 people in Taiwan live with HIV, and it once was considered a terminal illness, but that's since changed. Modern treatment allows HIV-positive people to live full lives. One antiretroviral pill a day can reduce a person's viral load, which would, quote, make them undetectable and untransmittable, which means they can't spread the virus. And a new UN report found that the AIDS pandemic could be eliminated by 2030, but only if world leaders commit to providing necessary health resources and advocate for human rights protections. But those I spoke to today say they still face discrimination in employment and in their daily lives. And this discrimination can often lead to fewer people seeking testing and treatment for HIV. And activists say that's their main battle here, eliminating these stigmas. Only then can they hope to successfully suppress the spread of HIV and AIDS. Klein Wong and Wesley Lewis in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
From the mountains of Kashmir to Christmas trees around the world, these handmade ornaments are made through a careful combination of Kashmiri design and Western themes. Harrell Hughes reports.
Deep in the valley of Kashmir, surrounded by the Himalayan mountains, local artisans, all Muslim, are hard at work, handcrafting intricate ornaments that will adorn Christmas trees around the world.
खुशी की बात भी है कि ये फेस्टिवल आने वाला है। इस फेस्टिवल में क्या है कि हमारे पास काम आएगा, काम इसमें आएगा, इसमें अलग तरीके से प्रोडक्शंस बनेगी, जैसे कि बॉल्स है, ट्रीज वगैरह और बहुत सारे आइटम्स आते हैं।
The ornaments are made from paper mache in a process that is rooted in Persian traditions. Artisans soak and mold the paper, smooth out the shape, and then hand paint intricate Kashmiri designs. It's a unique blend of traditions that has garnered admiration all over the world.
हम माल बनाते हैं क्रिसमस के लिए ये हम एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं लंदन फ्रांस वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज़ में भेजते हैं मगर हमारा थोड़ा इसमें प्रॉब्लम हो गया जो यूक्रेन जंग छिड़ गई रशियन जंग छिड़ गई उससे हमारा बहुत प्रॉब्लम हो गया हमारा काम 40% तक महदूद रह गया अब.
Despite the setbacks, the ornaments remain popular across the globe and have become an important part of the artisan's livelihood.
हमने पहले इसका जो ऑर्डर किया था 2005 में तो वो था 2-3 लाख का तो अभी वही कम से कम करोड़ों में जाता है क्रिसमस के और नए आर्टिकल्स बनते हैं इसके लिए और बहुत वर्क होता है इस पे जो.
With the Christmas holiday fast approaching, the ornaments are carefully packed and shipped by the artisans, sending the Christmas spirit from the mountains of the Himalayas to new homes around the world. Jiansu and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Don't forget to visit the TaiwanPlus website and follow us on social media. Finally, we take you to the streets of Taichung in central Taiwan to get into the festive Christmas spirit early. I'm Joyce. Take care and see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.